A Sterling Best of Texas final, inching closer to reopening, and Texas great Amy Olsen on today's show. Here we go. It's the TXWaterpolo Podcast. James Smith in Austin, Joe Linehan in North Texas. Here we go again. Joe, what have you been up to?
Quarantine.
No kidding. Yeah.
So, I guess we are starting to open up again, right? So have you gone and kind of waited in a line for a restaurant to go seat with, kind of when they can only fill it up by 25%?
No, and the thing about Austin is that that edict came out where you could fill the restaurant up to 25% of capacity, but there are so many restaurants that came out and said we're just not going to do that because it's not economically feasible. But we're still trying to do our best to to use these local vendors and get their takeout and all that kind of stuff. So but no, we're in a bit of a rut here. I think that. Well, we'll get into some more detail about what they're doing in the state of Texas. I think our audience is going to know, generally speaking, what that means. But it doesn't mean that people are actually going to follow through. It's like you can open up everything. It doesn't mean that people are going to be, comfortable enough to leave the house.
Yeah, exactly. It's May 18th, right? Is when the public pools are part of phase 2 that can possibly be opened, right?
Yeah, right. They're going to make a decision. That's Governor Abbott's office, and he'll make a decision. It's probably too little a time to determine whether or not the phase 1 has been, what do you want to call it, effective or at least safe. That's what a lot of people are saying. But I'm a fan of trying to push the issue at least a little bit. So that's the date that they're going to try to determine whether phase 2 begins, and public pools may be allowed to open on that day. You and I think, both agree that the likelihood is pretty small, but it is at least potentially there.
I think most pools are going to start having the conversation around that time.
Right.
And then if they do open up, it might be in the middle of June or even July. So. Well,
there was an interesting thing that you and I talked about, which was, okay, you open the pools, at least that you do nominally. Okay, then what? Like does it mean lifeguards get to work? What are the rules once you get in the pool? Who's setting the rules once you get in the pool? All of those kinds of things. It's
like there's this. I heard that there's a club water polo team that was offered the opportunity to practice yesterday, on Monday, May 4th, at their pool by the facility, and the facility rules that they said were you must be 10 feet apart while in the water, and you cannot pass the ball back and forth between two people. So it was basically you had to keep your distance and probably be able to do conditioning. I don't know if that club actually decided to participate or not, but it's going to be difficult for any club, swimming or water polo, if you only have 25% of your groups in there, is that going to be financially responsible? So
right. Is that a Texas club?
What?
Yeah, you said there was a club that may have been allowed to get back in the pool in Texas.
No, that was in Utah.
Oh, okay. So right, but it applies because it's entirely possible, at least in theory, that clubs could be told that they're allowed to get back in. I'm actually speaking for myself because I know that my boss, the swim coach, is really trying to get back in the pool, and he'll do the thing where he spreads out the practices throughout the entire day. We clean the bathrooms after it's over. I mean, we got to get into the sort of unfortunate details of all of this, but there will be time. And my practices are often, 10 people anyway. So it could possibly happen.
And there are 3 different types of pools out there. Like you practice in a city pool, which is going to be different than a school district pool,
right?
Which is going to be different than a privately held pool.
Yeah, we don't even know about them.
So I'm kind of curious whether a swim club like Nitro down in Austin, are they going to start practicing or not?
Yeah,
because in theory, they don't have to answer to anybody, right? Except for their members and USA Swimming. But they could have practice start at 6 a.m. and go till 12 o'clock at night.
Right.
And just have a handful of people in the water training each time, and just have the coaches come and the kids kind of come on a rotating basis. But there are other things to think about. It's not just in the pool. It's also in the locker rooms. It's also kids being dropped off.
Yes.
It's also, those kind of little 10 and unders and 12 and unders that are kind of running around and slapping each other on the butt and stuff like that. So, there are other things to think about besides just, the social distancing on the pool deck or in the water. So.
Yeah, no doubt. Yeah, that's going to be super interesting. I don't know, not terribly hopeful. I guess one of the good things was that SwimSwam, Austin, Texas-based SwimSwam, by the way. Go to swimswam.com. Give them a little plug. Wrote a story today that water polo is among the least dangerous of team sports. So apparently, a study at the Turin Polytechnic, they studied 320 sports, and determined that, of course, the ones that are, purely individual, sailing and open water swimming and all that, are basically, entirely safe. And then, but swimming came in water polo came in at a 2. And that was by far the highest, or among the highest of team sports, because chlorine kills this stuff. And so it doesn't deny the fact that, you can be sharing spit between each other, to be a little blunt, but it does say, the chances are lower.
Yeah, that's an interesting study, and I am sure there's other studies out there that say the complete opposite, but it's one of those things where, yeah, again, it's not just in the water though, so that's a great study to have, and it's nice to have like a positive spin on kind of water polo, kind of be able to start up here, but
semi-positive, yeah.
But the biggest thing is, I think everybody, the clubs, the coaches, the club admins, everybody just wants the safety of the athletes. That's the number one priority. So.
Politecnico di Torino recommends that players in team sports be tested 48 hours before each match, and that reserve players on the benches wear masks, and that all equipment be disinfected. We're talking about a serious regime of sanitation, and if they're going to move forward with this.
And so are we going to start talking about the availability of tests and masks, right, and all that stuff? I think that is not what the purpose of this particular podcast is.
Right. No. Nor are we trying to pitch this story as like the solution. By the way, I'd love to see the stories that say the opposite. And
I don't know. I'm sure there's stuff out there.
I'm sure somebody could send us to something. All I'm saying is that in theory, of all the sports that one could play, that that are team sports, that this would be the safest. That doesn't mean that it's safe, it just means safest. So, but interesting news. Do you have any sense for what USA Water Polo is planning to do in that regard? So, and I guess the way I would put it is that they have to come out at some point with guidance, I suspect, right, on what is a team supposed to do in relation to this outbreak, right? Because there's going to come a time when, let's say, my town of Round Rock says, okay, you can hop back in the pool, and USA Water Polo is going to have to share some guidance in that regard. Is that right?
Yeah, and this is something that all national governing bodies are going to be doing here over the next couple of weeks. And, and USA Water Polo is working internally on some communication for the coaches, the clubs, the athletes, and parents, and they're going to get some stuff out here over the next couple of weeks.
Okay.
But the biggest and number one thing, again, I just mentioned this, is the safety of the athletes, and not just the athletes, but also the coaches, the parents. That is the number one thing, is the safety as we get back into the pool, or as we kind of restart practices. And right. Everybody's going to be different. Texas is going to be different than California, and even within Texas, you might have the Austin kind of area that is going to be a little bit different than the Northeast Houston area,
Yeah.
And then even the Northeast kind of Houston area is going to be different than the Southwest Houston area. So everybody's going to have their own issues, and it's going to be, everybody's going to have to kind of follow the local guidelines, kind of obviously, but then everybody's also every facility is going to have slightly different kind of guidelines as well.
Exactly.
I gave that Utah kind of example kind of earlier, and that's just an example. And everybody's local pools are going to have their own kind of sets of those type of rules and regulations. So but USA Water Polo is probably going to get something out here over the next couple of weeks or so.
Okay. That's good to know. What's a little bit less good to know is Wall Street Journal came out with a report today that's placing the odds on the Olympics actually taking place at lower than expected. The organizers are saying that they've been the country of Japan has been spending about $240 billion on social welfare. And so funding for the Olympics, which they were expecting to get in from tourism revenue, it ain't happening. And so it's and they're basically saying at the highest levels of their scientific community that they have to have a vaccine before they can approve having the Olympics. And they're not gonna do half measures. They're not gonna have like a smaller Olympics. It's either go big or go home, right? So
it's all or nothing, right?
It's all or nothing. Yeah, depressing. But I don't know if that's necessarily surprising. But yeah, just another sign of things that are just dramatically changed.
Yeah, I haven't read that article yet, but I'm not surprised. I mean, there are going to be people that are going to be forecasting this or kind of forecasting that, and again, we hear all the time that there's a vaccine that's going to be ready in a month, or it's going to take a year and a half. So, I don't think anybody knows exactly right now.
Nope.
At least the layman, kind of doesn't know. So, I mean, I think the world is more worried about kind of getting back into facilities and kind of moving forward with that. So.
Right. Better news actually is tonight, Town Hall. Is it the first one, right?
No, we had one last week. So
yeah,
we had so we had Robert Allback in the Southwest Zone chair last week.
Yep.
And that recording kind of will go up on the TXWaterpolo website this week. But tonight, and again, most people that are going to be listening to this it'll already have happened. But we are going to have Angela Uno, the Southwest Zone co-head referee, and then we're going to talk about the new rules. Some struggles kind of with the new rules. We're also going to talk about how the high school is going to be adopting those new rules.
Yeah, that's a good point.
And it's going to be an opportunity for athletes and parents to ask some questions kind of along the way, any specifics about the new rules and such. And then of course the need for more referees as we move into fall 2021. So.
I'm going to dial in and just give my very strong opinions of how things should be called. I think that'll be very productive. It's just give that strong opinion from an expert like myself.
We can always put you on mute. It's okay.
Yeah, that's a good point. Hey, where's that video? Give me that Robert Allback video. I want to post that thing.
It'll be posted. Don't worry.
Okay. And then coaches to coaches. I know that Mark Lawrence's was pretty popular, and that's we've shared that already from last week. We got more to come.
All of them have been fairly popular so far. All the coach to coaches are at the TXWaterpolo website. This upcoming Thursday at 12:30 p.m., we are going to have Daniel Cox from Southside Water Polo. He's also at Dawson High School down in Pearland. He's going to be talking about center defense.
Okay.
And then next week we have Coach Alex from Pegasus is going to be talking about goalie stuff, or like the goalie basics. And then we have Coach Sabrina is going to talk about front court defense. Then we have Coach Jeff Chandler is going to be talking about 6-on-5. So that's kind of the schedule for the rest of the month.
All right, very cool.
And then we might have some special ones here or there kind of thrown in. So we're trying to keep like some consistent information out there, and and I hope that people are enjoying them. So
I think it's been among the only things that's been good about this whole virus thing is the amount of coaching education and athlete education that's going on out there. I've never seen anything like it. Yeah, exactly. And it had to, probably had to take something like this to get all the coaches off the deck and use their creativity in a different way. But I personally have just learned a bucket load of information since Flax and Jack Coker and coaches to coaches and Illinois. Like all these people are putting stuff out there. It's really been a very positive development.
Yeah, it's been great, and I think a lot of coaches are actually getting a little bit more technically savvy as well, myself included.
I totally agree. Yep.
I mean, I know I've had my technical issues on some of these coaches to coaches, or even last week's town hall meeting, but it's one of those things where I get better and better each and every time I do it. Just there like we hopefully have gotten better and better at each of these podcasts.
That's not true. So. No, we still stink. It's totally no improvement whatsoever. All right, let's come back with the results of the semifinals of our huge Best of Texas tournament right after this.
Right about now, you might be expecting some song and dance about a product you don't need. Well, shush, we don't advertise here, and we want to keep it that way. So we sure would appreciate your help. Show your support by going to TXWaterpolo.com/donate so we can keep covering the sport we love in the great state of Texas.
Hi, I'm U.S. Olympian Janai Kerr, and when I need to stay up to date with my water polo news in Texas, I listen to the TXWaterpolo Podcast.
It's James and Joe back with you. Joe, the Best of Texas tournament is almost over. We have 2 final matches.
Baytown Sterling, Baytown Sterling, Baytown Sterling.
Okay.
And Baytown Sterling.
All right. I don't think you need to make fun of Baytown Sterling quite so much.
I'm not making fun of Baytown Sterling. I'm just telling you what the results are. So
I feel like you're mocking them a little bit. So let me mock them a little bit. It's the 2001 Baytown Sterling boys that will face the 2007 Baytown Sterling boys. 01 Baytown Sterling beat Clear Lake, the 96 Clear Lake team, 64-36%. I'll ask you about whether you're surprised about these things, but is that a matchup that you're surprised the result of?
I'm surprised because there was that 96 Clear Lake boys team was kind of representative of, I think they won 5 in a row or 4 in a row back in the 90s. So I thought that might be a little bit bigger group of people that would vote. Because that was kind of representative. And the 2001 Sterling boys, they didn't win the year before or the year after. But it's one of those things where I think the Sterling people came out en masse to vote. So
all right, hold on.
But I do think the 2001 Sterling boys team was kind of very strong, and Justin Puddable said on the podcast a couple weeks ago like the same thing. So
yeah. Apparently your dog agrees, so this is good. Like they're very vociferous about the 01 Baytown Sterling boys. But 2007 Baytown Sterling boys is a team that you've mentioned more than once as maybe being the best in the entire tournament, and they took a beat, or they beat down Cypress Creek from 06, 81% to 20%, basically. Or 19%.
Yeah, I think I've been saying kind of from the beginning of this whole thing that the 2007 Baytown Sterling boys was one of the top teams in the state. So this just kind of proves it. They had a stud. They had a great coach in Scott Slade. They had a deep team. They probably went 2 or 3 deep on the bench. They probably had 10 kids on that team that played at NJOs. So yeah.
Yeah. And then same with the girls. So 07 Baytown Sterling again. That year must have been pretty spectacular. They beat their 92 version of their team, the Baytown Sterling girls, 76% to 24%.
Yeah, again, I think I've been saying the same thing about that 2007 Sterling girls. They had, again, a deep team, a ton of girls that went to JOs, and that was the start of the little Baytown Sterling dynasty for girls.
There you go. And they're gonna,
go ahead. Go.
No, they're gonna face the 2014 Baytown Sterling team of their girls, who took out the 04 Clear Lake girls by 63 to 37%.
Yeah, was it I think the 2014 they had a great player in Callie Woodruff, a great coach in Allie Hill. And they also had some other very good pieces there. That was kind of towards the end of that whole Sterling kind of dynasty for girls. And I don't know if much has been heard from Baytown Sterling since then in general, but Sterling was great and competitive from the mid 80s all the way up till the middle of the 2010s. So,
well, they clearly have a lot of fans because we got over 320 votes. And so, the results speak for themselves, but that was a highly favored group of teams, all Baytown Sterling final. Now, the question is, and we've talked about this from the very beginning, is, so these are the choices of the people, but you and I have some opinions too. So I'm going to start. I'm going to say that all due respect to the 01 Baytown Sterling boys, but the team that should be playing the 07 Baytown Sterling boys is the 2015 St. Mark's team. That's my opinion.
I think they were a strong team as well. They were deep. They were well coached. And that was kind of right in the middle of that little kind of the St. Mark's kind of, I think they've won 5 or 6. So.
Yeah. Yep. Yeah, that's. Do you agree with that, or is there who are you missing on the boys' side that you can think?
I think definitely that that there probably should be a St. Mark's team there. Or they could be there at the end. There were some pretty good. I think the Cypress Creek boys that in 2006, obviously, they were in the Final Four there. But I'm going to go back to the mid 80s. There were some dominant.
Exactly.
Dominant kind of Clark teams. Granted, we're not going to get like the 2015 kind of St. Mark's versus the 85 Clark boys. I don't know, like they played in 8 straight state championship games.
Right.
They were some of the dominant programs. Obviously, it's a much different game now than it was then, but I think the Clear Creek boys team from earlier into 2010s was pretty strong with Jared Castillo on there.
Yeah.
But yeah, there's some. I mean, it's always rough to kind of compare teams from different years and such. But this was good. But this has been a lot of fun. So
it has been fun. Now I don't have a good other girls team that I think could be competitive. I think that 07, based on what you've told me, what others have told me, that 07 Baytown Sterling girls team was really excellent. But I don't know another team that could take them on. Maybe those teams again from earlier in the 80s or 90s. I'm not sure. Do you have an opinion?
I know Mac mentioned the St. Agnes girls team from the late 90s, and they were a very, very, very strong girls team. I do also believe that the Humble girls team from 2006,
undefeated, right?
They were undefeated and had 8 girls. I think that was a strong girls team. I think there's been some strong teams from the mid 2000s too. From Carroll to Side Creek to Geyer.
Right.
I mean, I think they've all been stronger. I mean, the water polo obviously again is much different now than it was even 10, 15 years ago. But there's to be strong girls and strong girls teams throughout. But obviously Baytown Sterling in the championship. This is a testament to kind of Matt McDonald and Scott Slay and kind of TJ Markowitz and Allie Hill, who kind of constituted the coaches from 2001 all the way through 2014. So
yeah, Allie Hill is going to win. she's a member of the 07 team and then the coach of the 2014 team. So
congrats, Allie.
Yeah, well done, Allie. Maybe she's. You know what? I'll bet you she's the one who drove all the voting so that she could get in on this victory.
I don't know about. I don't think that's Allie's personality. But
let's bring her on. We'll talk.
But we do have an interview coming up here next with Amy Olsen, who was the state MVP on that 2007 girls team. So
yeah, super interesting stuff. Joe spoke with her for like almost an hour, maybe even more. So we're going to come back. We'll do excerpts like we did. By the way, just to back up a little bit, the conversation I had with the Andrews, Doug and Tom, was among my favorite conversations I've had. I learned so much. So I'm really looking forward to hearing about Amy Olsen, how she came up through the Texas ranks and then became really, I mean, would you say she is in the conversation of the best female player that ever came out of the state of Texas?
I would say she's in the conversation and probably in the top, probably 2 or 3.
Yeah.
At worst.
At worst.
She started playing. She went to Speedo Cups, which is now the Champions Cup. She won 3 state championships. I think they got second place her freshman year. Then she also won 3 state MVPs. She went to Iona, where she got her school paid for pretty much everything, by academics and athletics, and was first team all conference for 4 years. And then she was 3-time All-American, and then she also played at the NCAA championships for 3 years. And then after that, then she went and was a professional water polo player in Europe for 3 years.
Right. That's something that people may not know about. Like she left the States and she did this professionally for a while. That's a big deal.
And then she even got her master's degree paid for by the professional teams over there.
That's an interesting story. All right, you're going to hear about that. You will hear that, and then you will hear more of that this coming Thursday-ish if it all works out the way we want to. But we will return with that in just a second.
Hey, this is Mark Lawrence from Austin College, head coach of the men's and women's water polo programs and home of our Kangaroos. When I'm interested in what's going on with Texas water polo, I always listen to TXWaterpolo Podcast.
Welcome. Today we have Amy Olsen, who graduated from Ross Sterling High School in 2010. So Amy was also the 3-time state champion in 2007, 2008, and 2009. Also state MVP in those 3 years as well. After she graduated from Sterling, she went on and played at Iona and was a 3-time All-American and 4-time All-Conference and played at 3 NCAA championships. Amy, how are you doing?
I'm doing well. Thank you for having me and asking me to get interviewed.
Are you hanging in there kind of during the like the COVID-19 stuff?
Yeah, it's been some weird adjustments. It's obviously a bizarre time right now. But I adopted a puppy. So she's like my emotional support animal right now because I'm home all the time now and I usually am not. So I got a little puppy and
So what type of puppy?
She's a Maltese Shih Tzu. So she's really little. She's really small. And I got her because I thought it would be smart for, a condo dog. And but she's a firecracker. She's still like keeping me busy. And I'll even be in like,
right? So
what's that?
And barks at everything probably, right? So.
Yeah, she's nuts, but she's been a good distraction right now. So
when did you get her?
I got her about a month ago, right when we started going into quarantine. I've always wanted a dog, but like I said, I'm always gone for work and running around. So I didn't think it would be, a good time to puppy train. So now is the time to take advantage. And my boyfriend finally was convinced that way that I could get one. So it worked out.
Yeah, well, good. I wasn't asking you, are you doing anything fun and exciting? And there you go. You have a dog. So that is more than enough. It's more than enough. We have two big golden retrievers back at our house. So, and, but here, I know that this is going to go on the TXWaterpolo podcast. Have you been following like the best of Texas kind of brackets and such? I know your team still is in the semifinals now. So
yes, exactly. I have a little bit, and I've listened to a few interviews, and it's interesting because I hear I was in a different perspective. I was the athlete at the time, so it's so interesting to hear from like Coach Mack talking about the 70s, the 80s, and so like what? And also even the bracket situation. Of course, I've got some pride and a little bias to it. I'm like, thinking, of course, I'd like to be on the winning bracket. So I think it's a great idea.
I think Ross Sterling was well represented on both the boys and girls side, and they have 3 girls teams in the Final Four.
Yes. So, and that's, I think during that time, Sterling was strong all around, both men and women. Like you said, a lot of us went to play college water polo. If we didn't, it's because they didn't want to. All of us were in the club team. So it was a strong all-around program. So I would hope to see them both on the Final Four at least, or the top.
And they were strong from basically the mid '80s to the mid 2010s. It's like the one question I've had from people that didn't necessarily play back then. They're like, "What's Ross Sterling?"
Yeah, that's nuts to me. That like blows my mind.
I go, what are you talking about? But then I have to think they haven't been as strong the last few years. But that doesn't take away from kind of how good they were for a long, long time. So
right. Sure.
And you were part of that, and that's what we're going to talk about. So again, you grew up in Baytown, right?
Baytown, Texas. Yeah.
All right. So how did you get involved in water polo? I know you started whenever you were like 3 years old or something like that. But
actually, I didn't start as young as I wanted to, I guess. Like, growing up, I always would see some people, they start earlier and I would be a little jealous. But looking back, I think I started at a great time. I started when I was 10 or 11. Mm-hmm. I started with the, Baytown Tiger Sharks or whatever it was for the summer league swimming. And then I remember Scott Slay or Shelby Slay, one of them pulled me over. It was kind of a babysitting thing, in my opinion. Both my parents were teachers and they worked in the summer, and water polo was an extra hour or two. So I was just a pool rat, and they would drop me off in the morning. It was less than a mile from my house. And I would hang out there, swim in the summers and play water polo. And I was about 11 or 12. And just going back, you made me think of it about the Sterling comment. I remember just being on that like ugly green deck that we used to have and looking up at the banners at the state championships and being 11 years old and thinking, wow, I want to be on that, even so young. And you would see all the years that people had, that Sterling had won for both men and women. And when I first started, Coach Mack was still there. I had Scott was there as well, but my first couple of years in like the club level, I had Coach Mack, Scott Slay, Shelby Slay, Rudy a little bit, a lot of coaches. So it was such a great environment to feel encouraged from all ends. But I felt really proud to be at Sterling. I felt really proud that I was in that program.
And you started about 2001 or 2002, around that time?
Yeah, I think that would be I know Shelby Slay was in high school. Like she was winning and I thought, wow, I want to be like her. This like strong woman, this girl, she's like kicking ass. And, I remember reading an article in the Baytown Sun about like her swimsuit being ripped and she gets right back in the pool. I'm like, wow, she's a badass. I want to be like her.
So, they were a strong program. I think the Baytown Sterling team won in 2001 for both boys and girls. So that probably kind of motivated you to kind of be part of that. And just a little aside, like we talk about Sterling, they may not be in the talk nowadays as far as the high school teams out there, but I played in a high school state championship back at Ross Sterling back in the late 80s, early 90s. So at that pool. So could you imagine at that pool, a high school state championship?
Wow.
Probably not.
No, I can't.
No, yes. Obviously, like you started playing kind of with the summer league team, and then you started playing a little bit more club and year round, and then you went to like kind of tournaments like Speedo Cup. So kind of tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, my first trip away, even from home by myself, it started with water polo, and that really was like the segue. It was foreshadowing my whole life, honestly, of just traveling for water polo. So I went to Speedo Cup. And I had, my best friends with me. I had Katie Vasquez and Madison Pepper was there, I think. And of course, the men's side too. It was so fun. You had Matt Chapa, Zane, and just the crew. And we went to Speedo Cup in Missouri, right?
Mm-hmm.
It was Missouri.
Oh, yeah.
And, it was just a blast, but that was the first time I had a few things. One, like a wake-up call that, wow, there's water polo that's bigger than us, It's eye-opening. And it was also my first time that I got really competitive because I knew that I wasn't like the top tier of my team. I knew that I was, I didn't get as much playing time, or I could tell that I was viewed a little bit less skilled or talented. So I really sparked my competition that way because I thought, wow, I want to play the whole time. I want to be the best. So it was a really cool experience to go there. And we even went to Albuquerque one year. We drove on a bus there for like 8 hours. I
heard about that story where kind of didn't the toilet break down or something like that?
Yes, the toilet broke down. And so we were in this, big bus for hours going to this, tournament. And we're like, this is just, we did it to save money, but it wasn't worth it. That was ridiculous, but.
Hey, but it's a good story. It's one of those things where
I think I blacked some of it out. It's so scarring.
In the moment, you're like, "Oh my God, I can't believe I did this." But for the Speedo Cup, how many Speedo Cups? Yeah, did you play in? And for those that don't know, Speedo Cup is what is now called Champions Cup. It's the tournament. It's the 8th grade and under boys and girls tournament that happens every November. And this past November, it was at the University of Houston, kind of actually. So
that is, that in itself to me is, it's really cool that it's in Houston now, but that is impressive that it's, that just says a lot about Texas water polo, that we're part of, we hosted it one year. I think that's really cool. But I was there 3 years, my 6th, 7th, and 8th grade. That's the 3 years that I went.
So how was that going as a 6th grader? Like, obviously there were some older players there with you and you were just probably in awe with your eyes wide open.
Yeah. That's when, and I keep thinking of the plaques that we had when you would go, to get like the picture of yourself. And actually, I remember my parents couldn't go. So my parents, like I said, they're school teachers. I had 2 other siblings, like they couldn't go to these trips with me. Sure. So I had one of the parents, she even bought me like a action shot. And the action shot, like looking back, I was like, my chin's in the water. Like, I could barely swim with the ball, but she got it for me. And I remember I had it forever in my room. And, we have the awkward team photo at the end. But I was, 6th grader, not with my parents. I was just, kind of had the coaches watching me like, sorry, Scott. And, and I just remember just looking up to a lot of people and lot of learning that trip.
And then it must have changed a lot between your 6th grade year and your 8th grade year. Obviously, you went back as an 8th grader. Yeah, you were probably like the big alpha female on the team and stuff like that. So,
yeah, I think I grew a lot too in that time, as far, not physically, but as far as just my IQ, my water polo IQ, and I was able to compete with a lot of those teams that I didn't feel comfortable before. That's when I grew a lot of confidence. And like I said, back to the competitive thing, by the time I was in 8th grade, I was starting and, playing every minute. And then I was very excited to play at Sterling the next year. So for me, that was a good feeling.
But weren't you also, I forget exactly what place you guys got, but weren't you competitive with like the top teams at Speedo Cup that year too?
Yes, we were. I don't remember exactly what place we got, but I do know that we started to kind of, that group of people, probably some of the people in that 2007 group that is in the bracket that should win.
There you go. It's okay. Pump them up.
Subliminal messages.
Okay.
But okay. I remember that's when we all started growing. It wasn't just me that was growing as a player. It was all these other women. And I think that's when people started noticing us too. We started kind of making a name for ourselves even then at Speedo Cup. Yeah. So it was
and then that took you guys into high school, and a lot of those kids that were on that Speedo Cup team also went to Ross Sterling High School at the same time.
Yes.
And that kind of had that core group, kind of what you were saying as that group that's like the Sterling girls kind of dominated from about 2007 all the way up to about 2014. So that was like the core group that kind of got that started. I think you guys had a bunch of freshmen and maybe a couple sophomores that almost won state your freshman year. I think you lost to Humble that year, but then that just kind of got you guys on a roll starting your sophomore year and beyond, right?
Right. Yeah, that was a good way to, kind of kick us off. Just even like our passion for water polo, we had it before we were even freshmen in high school. So we were kind of ahead of the curve in that way, I think, because we all competed together and we were all best friends and hung out together. It was our, it was our daycare. It was everything. So we were really ready to kick off the season.
So what did you think about Scott as a coach back then? Because that was whenever Scott had transitioned to being the head coach for MAC. That was probably quite a difference, right?
Yeah. And in fact, my 8th grade year, that's when Mac retired, or not retired. He went to St. Agnes.
Or Lamar.
What's that?
He went to Lamar.
Lamar, sorry. And that's whenever I do remember even feeling sad because I had always wanted him to coach me, because growing up, I would just remember his loud voice. And I don't know, I thought it'd be great. And then Scott Slay comes in and, that was, I don't know, not a catalyst, but I think that was a very important time of my life. And it was really important that he was my coach because he was very good at humbling me in a way. Like he always put me in my place. And in fact, it was hard to even squeeze a compliment out of him. So, and I think he was also probably transitioning as a coach himself. Like he was probably transforming and he was, in this head coach capacity. So looking back as a coach myself now, I can kind of see, he's younger and probably trying to keep this little sassy girl from Baytown in her place the whole time. So
I don't think you were the only sassy girl from Baytown, by the way.
Yeah, there were a few sassy girls from Baytown. It's like part of our criteria.
That's okay. They're let's just say the Dirty Bay moniker was earned, right? So
yes, Dirty Bay. We were pretty proud of that too.
No, and I completely kind of understand. But you guys pretty much dominated. So like between your sophomore year and your senior year, did you guys lose the game?
I don't think we did. Not with high school.
Yeah. No.
Not one. In fact, my senior year, the championship game, I don't remember the score, but I know it was it was 20-2 or something. Like it was.
Yeah, that was against Stratford, and I don't think Scott. Let's say Mike Hoskovic kind of wasn't a big fan of that just at the time. But you were during your junior senior year, you also went through to what Mac and I kind of dubbed the Civil War a little bit, kind of when there was a fall state championship and the Tisca Water Polo Spring Championship. Going through that as a player, how was that? How did that go with you? did you care? It was just water
I
polo.
did care. I think that's an interesting question because I remember feeling a sense of uncertainty during it because I don't know, you're used to one way, and even, when you're in like those years that I was in Speedo Cup and club, you're used to looking forward to a certain time of your life. And then when you finally get to there and it changes, it's a little disruptive. But I remember just kind of honestly being loyal to whatever Scott wanted. So maybe I didn't even have my own opinion, but I was very loyal to, whatever his opinion was. So it was a weird time, but by the time I was a senior, it's like whatever, I was over it. So, but it was a little weird.
I mean, and also you were on some of probably what I would consider it's not just the best kind of high school group that I think for girls ever, but you're also part of some of the better club kind of group of girls as well, especially like your 16 and your 18 and under yours, like the non-Sterling girls were Taylor Barnett. There was a couple of kind of others that I can't think of.
Taylor Silva.
You go.
Clear Lake girls and boys.
And those were some of the strongest teams. And for those that are listening, I mean, you guys were out at JOs and this was back whenever there was only the 48 girls, right? Like the 48 kind of girls teams. You were at JOs and competing for top 10.
Yeah.
At that point.
Oh yeah.
And not just hoping to get into platinum, which is the top 24.
No,
so and that must have been kind of fun, right?
Yeah, those are the best trips of my life. I mean, the all around, not just being with your friends and going on a road trip, to California, but the competitive games were so challenging, just mentally and physically. And, you learn every game you're done and you feel like you're beat up and you just learn so much because you're playing against people who play that same level every weekend. So you felt like, David Goliath all the time. You have a chip on your shoulder. You go in there, you want to show them who's, we can play at from Texas, and of course, just a lot going on when you go into that. Like it's like an arena, when you go in to the games, and being competitive helps a lot because it's one thing to go in and you're like, crap, I'm gonna get my ass handed to me. But when you actually have good people on your team, you get a little bit more fiery. And more competitive. So, I mean, that's what I think is amazing to me, even like from a coaching perspective now, like going back to it, whenever I am coaching athletes that were my age at the time, I wish I knew how talented we were at the time. I wish we really, I don't know. I didn't realize it, how good we had it.
Well, I mean, y'all were a great team. And a little side note, after I moved up to Dallas in the summer of 2009, we went out there, and I guess it was actually the summer of 2010. And we were out there for I had brought a Dallas water polo girls kind of a club team out there, and I actually left them kind of with some coaches and some other parents. And I actually went and watched you guys play one time. It was at USC. Yeah. I mean, I think I said hi just because, this is a lot of girls. So this was a lot of the girls that I kind of helped kind of coach a little bit and such like that. So
you're a big impact to us. I'm not just saying that because you're interviewing me, but you really were. It wasn't just Scott Slay. We had a lot of coaches that helped us, but I do think you had a big impact on that discipline we were talking about before with playing in players, as far as little things like going to the 2 meters and winging out properly, playing defense properly, keep your hips up, etc. I can go on and on. Yeah. But Scott, you guys have your strengths in different ways, but you certainly instilled a discipline in the Dirty Bay girls that I think we needed. Like Scott almost let us out of our cage and let us go. You kind of brought us back in to an extent. So it was kind of a good team, a good pairing, I think, that we had. But we were fortunate that we had you during that time too, because of those different kind of fundamentals that we were disciplined with.
Yeah. So I always joke around with people, kind of whenever Scott and I started kind of working together, I probably kind of showed him how to be a little bit more organized as far as practice, but he showed me how to kind of loosen up a little bit and have a little bit of fun and stuff like that. So, and I think we worked really well together, and I think the kids enjoyed it and stuff like that. And, and one of those things that we did at that time also is, and I know this upset the boys to all not, but we brought the girls out to the Women's Open and 20 under national championships, which for those that are just listening and have never heard about it, this is like the Super Bowl for the women's water polo. Yeah, just out there. And it was the 20 and under championships, kind of were a Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, and then the Open championships were a Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And I know that you went out there on those trips, and I kind of brought you guys out there I didn't think that we were going to win the tournament, but I wanted to do something a little bit more challenging and different kind of for that main group that was like kind of to push them. So we had a couple kids back from college that played, but our average age was about 16. How did you like those trips? Because you were on the younger age then, I think. That you were like the 16 or 17 at that time.
I think one of the trips I was the youngest, or me and Katie, we were the youngest. And that was one of my favorites. Was the first year we went, even though we lost every game except one or two. We always
won a game in every tournament. We never got last. Okay, I do remember that. So there you go.
Yeah, but that was the year I played with girls that were older than I was, and talented, that had played in college, or maybe they just graduated, like Kristen Barnett, for example, among a few others. So for me, that was a really good experience to be with them and learn from them, and teach me, different, I guess it's a different way of playing sometimes too. Like you have to switch gears. I was used to kind of being the leader on a team, and then all of a sudden I'm with them and I have to, be adaptable. So that was a good lesson for me. But I mean, it was incredible to play against really talented teams. And I think we played against Betsy Armstrong, Nyack. And now, like, looking back, I'm like, wait, I was playing on Nyack a few years ago even. But I remember when we scored on Betsy Armstrong, I'm like, yes, like we were so excited. And
there you go.
Just little things like that.
And I think that second year we went, I think we lost the game in overtime against SoCal. That would have put us in the top 8 for the 20 and under, where, I mean, I think we were even beating SoCal until they scored like in the last minute or so. So, I mean, that group of girls was, again, I will say this, that was one of the most talented group of girls. That, like, your group a couple years ahead of you and a couple years behind you. That was about 6 years of just strong kind of female water polo. So,
I agree.
And then after you graduated and you did all that, then you went out to Iona and played. Yes. How did you pick Iona? Why Iona?
Well, I had spoken with you, actually. I remember you
a long time ago,
spoke with my dad and I, talking about options for me. And I was considering big schools such as Michigan, UCLA, USC. I mean, I was really thinking about those schools and considered seriously Michigan, and took a trip out there and everything. But ultimately, Iona gave me what I really wanted, which was a chance to, one, develop as a player, be in a place I wanted to be near Manhattan, and I wanted to play. So I knew that if I went to one of the bigger schools, yes, I would play, but not the extent that I wanted to. And also, it kind of came down to money ultimately. Like, I'm forgetting one of the main parts.
Of course,
if you get a full ride at one place, it's hard to turn it down to go pay out-of-state tuition at another. I didn't have the means to go. My pickings were slim for me in a way.
So you got a full ride for academics and athletics to go to Iona?
Yeah. Yes. Ultimately, I was taken care of. I'm very fortunate. So that's one thing that I do still tell people when I'm coaching, and I remind other girls that I still stay in contact with when I was coaching in California 2 years ago. I just keep trying to remind them that it does not, you can figure it out. You can play. Even if you don't think you're the best, there is a school for you. There's a way you can figure it out. If a girl from Baytown, Texas, who didn't have much money, I had no choice. I knew I had my ticket out of there was academics and athletics. And even if you don't have one or the other, you can figure it out if you do the work and do your research and find your contacts to help you to find the right school for you. So I was very fortunate. I already had Kathleen Link. We, was a Texan. She was already there. So that was helpful. Like we had a connection. You knew Brian Kelly, and that was it helped me to be comfortable. And after that recruiting trip, and I'm, in the city, I'm like, how can I not go here? This is great. And
Exactly.
and Brian Kelly's really good at selling you for Iona. He's like taking you to Nyack, like, hey, you can play with Nyack in the summers, and which he's right. I mean, I did, but he's really good at selling Iona.
He's good at selling, like kind of Iona, and he's a good motivator too. He will get the kids ready to play. And,
yes.
And going. And if you missed it at the beginning, Amy was all conference, I think first team all 4 years, correct? And also an All-American 3 times and played at 3 NCAA champion kind of ship tournaments. Just tell us about like the water polo kind of in college. Good, bad, what?
Well, I mean, a little bit of everything, because Iona was an interesting place because you know how it feels to win, but you know how it feels to lose. And what I mean by that is you're not, you can win, the games in your conference, but you also had really competitive ones like with Marist or Wagner. Mm-hmm. And then you would also go to a California trip and play top 10 schools and get your butt kicked. So I felt like I had a good dynamic there. I had a good team, especially my freshman year. I was able to start my freshman year, and I basically got a lot of playing time. I played almost every minute starting my freshman year. And that's because I think I really gelled with the starters already. So I was playing with seniors and juniors, but I think he was able to just kind of put me wherever. That was one of my, kind of got lucky that way, honestly. Yeah. It's not like I was just a goalie or, only 2 meter, like I can kind of do whatever. So I was really able to develop, and we went to a lot of tournaments all over the Northeast. We went to Michigan, California, and then of course, NCAA. To go to the NCAA, you have to win your conference. So the first time we went, my freshman year was the first time Iona won the MAC championships. So not only was it the first time we won a conference, we went to NCAA and competed for the top 8 teams. So when you go there, it just felt like I don't mean to like put water polo down, but we're not treated the same collegiately as other sports, obviously, because we're not the moneymaker.
But you're still treated well.
Oh yeah, we're still, I mean, we get gear, everything's compensated,
exactly.
Don't get me wrong. I think
it's
I'm
still the NCAA championships. It's just not on ESPN. That's all. So
right. And to be fair, some of them were, it was really well done as far as streaming live, so your parents can see from home, and you still got a lot of gear. And when you go to NCAA, it's not the conference taking care of you; it's NCAA. Yep. So you get all this nice gear, you get interviews pre and post game, and it was really cool to be treated like that and know that other people viewed your sport and what you're doing as important.
Now, one thing that I remember talking to Brian Kelly, kind of during your while he was recruiting you, he was like, "What position is she?" I go, "Well, we don't really have a position here. She's utility, so we try to teach all of them kind of to do everything. Amy can do pretty much everything very, very well. So that's kind of still, I know that's what a lot of coaches here in Texas kind of try to instill, because they might be a center player on their club team, but they might be an attacker on their high school team. But then they get to college and they might be a center defender. So, I mean, going into college with that background, so do you think that hurt or helped you?
Oh, it definitely helped. I think that's just even more, it just goes back to what I was saying, that I think that's why I was able to be a starter my freshman year, because I wasn't the best, yet. I wasn't quite there, but I had the potential to be, and I still was able to help the team. And I think he was able to see that. And, having a good team around you helps you to be successful. So if I have good teammates around me, of course they can make me look good, but I also, it's not like I needed to score every game. If he wanted me to play 2 meter defense, then that's where I was at. So I think that was really helpful, that we were able to just kind of learn every, utility. Like you said, you're able to do it all.
Now, also in college, you went out and played in these different tournaments, and then you got to see all your buddies from Texas. Was that kind of fun, right?
That was the best. We always would take pictures every time we see Taylor at Bucknell, Tara at Michigan, Allie when she was at Maryland, and any of the California girls. That was the best feeling. And then to be in the locker rooms with them after and just like shooting the shit and just talking about everything. And it was such a good feeling, especially a lot of the times my parents didn't even get to watch me play. Like my parents didn't really see my games. So it felt amazing. I felt so proud, when I would see Taylor and like, hey guys, it's my friend Taylor, I'd be really proud, it's like having family there.
I mean, yeah, but it's also kind of nice to see. I mean, I think I went out. Yeah, did I see you? I think I saw you play one time. You and Kathleen out in out in Cal Baptist. But it's just kind of seeing all these Texas kids. That just made that must have kind of made you feel kind of a little proud about. Hey, listen, we are good. Because even though you got to kind of Iona, there's still the quote unquote the California girls, right? And
absolutely.
And then they didn't. Oh God, kind of you're from Texas. Once they saw you play, they probably didn't care.
Right.
But you're like, hey, look, there's more of me. There's a lot of them.
Right.
So
that's a great point, because I've always had a chip on my shoulder with that, I think, and it gave me a lot of pride to have me like, I'd be proud of Madison Pepper and say, yeah, she's from Texas. I definitely had a lot of pride with that.
That was Joe's conversation with Texas superstar Amy Olsen, and there's going to be more of that presumably at the end of this week. But aside from that, we're done. Again, once more, thank you, Joe.
Thanks, James. I appreciate it. And don't forget to tune in to the Texas Coaches to Coaches or the Southwest Zone Town Hall meetings.
Yeah, you have one more vote, people. That's it. I mean, vote for your favorite Baytown Sterling team. That's the way it's going to line up. So we'll come out with those announcements.
It'll end on Tuesday, May 11th?
Tuesday at noon. Yep, I closed the polling around then. So it'll open up here pretty soon. It'd be great to have a huge turnout. It'd be fun. So Allie, get all your Baytown Sterling fans to get out there to vote.
It'll be good. So
and we're also trying to line up somebody for next week to interview. We'll let you know as soon as we can, but hopefully somebody pretty good. So, but anyway, thanks to Amy Olsen for taking time to talk with us, and thanks to all of you listeners and for telling friends about the TX Waterpolo Podcast. Find us at TXWaterpolo.com. Find us on social media, leave comments, give to the cause, and stay up to date about the state of the game in Texas. But until next week, so long from Austin.
Yeah, just take care, be safe.
This has been a production of TWP Sports LLC.
My dog is scratching at the door.
I can hear him.